Hello everyone, Eddie here, Think Education's lecturer for risk management. And as scheduled, we are going to discuss the module 3 today. And I'm glad that some people have been in communication with me. I'm sending them sending the draft and receiving feedback from me. So that's good. All right, so let's continue with today's module. And again, it is highly recommended for all students to go through the learning materials, as this presentation includes some key concepts only. And therefore, you need to find the details on your study guide. And again, if you need help, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm glad that again some students have been doing that. So it is highly recommended as well. All right, so this is my favorite slides again, as mentioned to you in module 1, that please make sure that you have downloaded the study guide, assessment brief, assessment template, and subject outline. Okay? And go through each module in the study guide according to the timeline. Well, it is estimated that you can complete one module in approximately 2 weeks. And in every second week, we plan to have this kind of webinar. And attempt each assessment and hand in the assessments on time. And we are now at the end of week 5, and we are going to have the assessment due in week 7. So in the next couple of weeks, your assessment is due. And after that, we are having our last assessment, which is due in week 11. And again, please contact me for if you need help, academic help, and for non-academic support, please contact the Student Services Center. Right, this is the framework that we've been discussing, and one of the tasks for your assessment 1 actually talk about it as well. It requires you to outline these 4 areas: establish the risk context, identify risks, analyze risks, and select and implement treatments. This is the framework which is taken from the Australia Standard, New Zealand Standard, ISO 31000-2009. Okay, now, so for this module, at the end of the presentation, we expect you to understand the key concepts of risk analysis and use the tools to analyze risks. Right, now your assessment 1, one of the outcomes of your assessment 1 is basically to identify risks. You establish the risks, you establish the risk context, and also you identify risks. And there are several risks that we can identify from the case study. And this module is basically about continuing that journey, okay? After we identify the risks, then the next step would be the risk analysis. There are 4 phases in the risk analysis. The first one is identify the existing control. What have we got in our system at the moment? And we need to find out whether they are working or not. What have we got in place? Okay, this will be the foundation of risk analysis. And determine the likelihood of the risk occurring and its frequency, and determine the risk consequence if a risk occurs. And the last one is to estimate the level of risk by combining consequence and likelihood. Now, just for your information, some experts label these consequence as impact because they appreciate the fact that risk can be negative or positive, or can be uncertain. whether it will be positive or negative. Therefore, they put the word, they use the word impact to be more neutral, basically. Okay, now, analyzing the risk likelihood. This represents the probability of risk events to occur. Okay, so that's what we mean by risk likelihood. We normally rate the likelihood. Okay, how do we rate it? We can rate it from 1 to 3, 1 being low, it is unlikely, 3 being very likely or very certain. Okay, or some other organizations use 1 to 5, or 1 to 10, or even 1 to 100. Okay. You can use 1 to 5 actually to in your risk management practice. Okay, 1 to 3 maybe too may not be as diagnostic, may not provide us with the ability to diagnose the issue better. Okay, so this is what it represents, what the rating represents. 1 being rare, for instance, or very unlikely, 5 being certain, so from 1 to 5. Can you work the other way around? 1 being certain, 5 being rare or very unlikely? Yes, you can, of course, as long as you're consistent, but normally we use 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest probability, 5 being the highest probability. In terms of determine the likelihood, experts also suggest what they call as the event tree. Let's say here we in the event tree we have the initiating event, and we try to find out the likelihood of the risks based on the event tree. Okay, the initiating event here, let's say fire, and we say that it includes several systems in here, like the sprinkler systems, call the fire brigade, and the last one is the outcomes. Okay, and we analyze each probability for the probability for each system, like the sprinkler system or the and based on that, we analyze what action we need to do. Either we need to call the fire brigade or not, and so on and so forth. So this is basically the event tree. And this one here is basically the event tree that we use that is used to determine likelihood for a more complicated system. We have more than a couple of systems here, starting from the initiating event, loss of grid power supply, and we look at several systems here, like the diesel engine starts, diesel engine runs for required period, and the last system is the battery power supply functional. Okay? And each of them we analyze the probability. Okay, here we can refer to statistical analysis, whether the loss of grid power supply, how likely is the diesel engines, how likely is that? We can say, yep, 98%. Now 2%. So based on that, we analyze the possibility for diesel engine runs for required period. Well, if the diesel engine starts and the likelihood is 98%, then 99.9% the diesel engine runs for required period, and only 0.1% or 0.001 the diesel engine will not run. And based on that, we then analyze the likelihood for this event. What are the other techniques to determine the likelihood? Well, there are some other techniques as well that we can use, which include consultation with the stakeholders. Remember, in the beginning of this conversation, we discussed that risk management must involve the stakeholders since the beginning of the process. So we got to maintain communication, and the stakeholders that we involve are basically unique because they have unique skills and capabilities as well as experiences. Therefore, we got to consult with them. The stakeholders can help us in generating the insights about the likelihood as well. And of course, we can discuss with the expert in the specific area to determine the likelihood. Right, so that's the likelihood. Now let's talk about the consequence. Consequence represents how bad is the risk if it happens, if it occurs. Okay, now that can be reflected by costs, working days lost, the other asset lost, or severity of an injury. So we can measure the consequence based on these areas here, right? Or any other things, including financial loss, for instance, or brand damage, our brand reputation damage. It is also part of the consequence if the risk happens. Again, how do we measure it? We can also rate the consequence or impact from 1 to 5, 1 being insignificant, 5 being catastrophic. Catastrophic could be in the context of WHS, could be someone may get injury and maybe may need to go to the hospital for many days, or it can also take casualty. The same thing here, we have the decision tree. So we normally look at the, in terms of analyzing the consequence, we normally look at a number of areas here, such as the development costs, the outcome, projected sales revenue, and net profit, for instance, based on this example, right? If we have the database A, B, and C, what is the chance for us to have it? What is the cost of developing the database A? $200,000. And what is the chance for that to be successful? 50-50. And if it is successful, what is the projected sales revenue? $1.2 million. If that's the case, then our net profit would be $1 million. So that helps us to determine the consequence of an event. In this instance, developing database A. And what about if it is a failure? Well, if it is a failure, which is a 50% chance, that means we receive nothing. We'll receive zero revenue. What does it mean? We are losing money, the money that we use to develop the database A, and so on and so forth. Okay. Right. What about the other techniques? Well, the other techniques to determine the consequence, again, we can also consult the stakeholders. Stakeholders are basically the expert that we trust we trust these people because of their expertise. So we can consult with them to get their opinion, get their insights in terms of how big is the impact or the consequence. Okay. And we can do some research as well, definitely. All right, now this one here is the risk register. The risk register here is basically the one that we need to complete. And we got the risk, we have identified the risks already. The next thing that we need to do is the likelihood, impact, and priority. Okay. Now, how do we get the priority? Well, look, the priority in here is basically the multiplication of likelihood and impact. Okay. So if let's say if we launch a new product and we need to analyze the risks, and one of the risks that may occur is our competitor reducing their price by the time we launch the new product. Okay, so in here, risk would be competitor reducing the price. Okay, then we analyze the likelihood. What is the likelihood for our competitor to reduce the price? Well, probably quite little, let's say as little as 2. And what is the impact if competitors reduce their price when we launch the new product? Well, the impact could be 4 or 5, quite high, right? Either 4 or 5. Let's say our sales management team advise us that it's quite high, and let's say it's 4. If it is 4, then the priority in here becomes 8, because we got the likelihood 2. I'll just type it here. We got the priority, let's say risk 1. We got the likelihood 2, and the impact is 8, and the priority or risk level actually, but that is fine. 2 by 4 equals 8. Okay, and let's say the second risk. This one here is competitor. Okay, I'll just type it here, competitor. Okay, the second risk. What is the second risk? The second risk would be key staff resigning from work when by the time you want to launch the new product. Okay, if the key staff resign from work, then it may be there may be some disaster in here, because these guys hold the important information for our new product launch. Okay, all right. I just try to enlarge the screen to make it more visible. Okay, what is the likelihood our key staff resign from the job by the time we want to launch new product? Well, probably quite little. Let's say 1. What is the impact? The impact is quite high, because we need this person to help us. Okay. Well, how high is that? Well, let's say 5. Okay. What is the priority here? Well, 1 times 5, we got 5. Okay. And let's say we have another risk that we also have identified here. Let's say supplier does not deliver the materials on time. If supplier does not deliver, if our suppliers do not deliver the materials on time, we are going to be in trouble, because we can't launch the product on time. Okay, what is the likelihood? Well, the likelihood for suppliers to deliver the materials on time is quite is moderate. Let's say 3. What is the impact? Well, the impact is we don't know when we will launch it. Let's say based on the feedback from our procurement team, which is part of the, they are also our stakeholder in this business. So they advise us that the impact is, the likelihood is quite moderate, because let's say they have heard that the staff in there may be on strike, let's say, for argument's sake. Okay. And what would be the impact? Well, the impact would be quite severe, because we will be in limbo. In terms of whether we are going to launch it or not, or when we are going to launch it or not. Okay, let's say it's quite either 4 or 5. Okay. Now we have in here we have a 3 by 4, right, which is basically 12. Okay. All right, let's say we have analyzed these 3 risks. Okay. And what's next? Well, if you look at that, this one here is the highest in terms of level of risk. Okay, therefore this will become our priority number 1. Okay, this will become our priority number 1. Okay, and this will become our priority number 2. And this one here will become our priority number 3, okay, based on our risk analysis. Okay, now we are going to discuss the rest in the next module, which is basically about the treatment plan, action plan, and the rest of this, the rest of your risk register table. Okay? Right now, just taking this opportunity to briefly just look at the your assessment. Okay, now this is our assessment. Okay, so there you go. We have selected. We have identified 4 risks in the previous assessment. For each of the risks, we need to assess the likelihood. Okay, you can rate it like 1 to 5, for instance, and also the consequence. Again, you can rate the consequence as well. Okay. Now here we talk about the treatment plan. We are going to talk about the. We are going to discuss the treatment plan in your module 4. In your module 4, basically. So stay tuned. We are going to get there to discuss the treatment plan. Okay. Right, and prioritize the importance of each risk, and also include the explanation. Please explain it. Now, everything in here you just need to refer to the case study and also the template and action plan. We are going to discuss that as well in module 4. Okay, and last one is draft an email. Okay. Okay, now let's have a look at the template. This is the template I spoke about for assessment 2. Again, you are required to draft an email. When you draft an email, please outline the key findings, outline the highlights of your plan. Okay, of your attachment, which is basically your plan. You can explain the your risk, the risks that you have identified, and the likelihood, consequence, and also the treatment briefly. Okay. And there you go. This is the one that we need to deliver, the risk register table for each risk that we have identified. There are 4 risks that you need to explain. Okay, the likelihood, the consequence. You can rate it from 1 to 5, 1 to 5, and after that you explain the treatment plan. Okay. There you go, guys. So that's basically, and this is the treatment plan. The treatment plan here is basically in brief what we want to do, what are the key initiatives, and then these are basically tasks that we need to complete for the treatment plan. Okay. All right. So hopefully that gives you an idea in terms of the key concepts that we need to learn for this assessment. Okay. Sorry, for this module, and hopefully that gives you an overview for the assessment as well. We try to spend a bit more time, a little bit of time again in our module 4 discussion. Okay. Now, next step, please get in touch with me. Happy to go through your draft and give you feedback on your draft, and I'm glad that some students do that as well, which is fantastic. So what's the next step? Go through module 3, start assessment 2, okay, which is due in week 7, okay, and time the tasks and contact me if you need help. Okay, stay tuned for the next module. Okay, and good luck.